We have a very large agenda today. I'm going to start with the 1.8 agenda. Let's see if we can get through that part of it. Daniela, I want to keep this to 10 to 15 minutes between 1.8 and 1.9.
Sure.
And then we'll stop and talk about the agenda for the rest of the items. Go ahead, Daniela.
Sure. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, can hear you. Would
Perfect.
you like to present, or are you good? Just
No, that's perfectly fine. So on 1.8, we were wondering if the working groups would propose any fixes or anything that needs to be added to a potential patch release. We have identified two issues in the current release. So one of them is regarding VS Code with volumes. This was raised by Julius. He has to double check again if that is reproducible with his current setup. I believe we don't have still a GitHub issue for that, but Julius was going to reproduce and file an issue when he was able to.
Yeah, I have to do this
Yep.
next week anyway, so next
Right.
week you will get feedback from me.
Cool. Thanks, Julius. The other issue that we have found is with pipelines. So there's actually an issue for that one I will share with you. It's in the pipelines repository. For this one, what's happening if you upgrade from pipelines v1, so the backend v1, or from the backend with version 2.0 alpha 7 or some alpha, so essentially the previous release, to the newer GA, so 2.03, and you happen to have pipelines v1, they will no longer run in your newer setup. So that is very concerning. I was able to reproduce the issue and have left a comment there in the issue, and I think two other users from the community have confirmed this as well. So it would be interesting to hear from the pipelines working group if you're checking on that, and if you're going to be releasing something new, so that we can add this in a patch release. We discussed some options because of the limited time that we have, because it's the end of the year. So option one is to document these known issues and provide some sort of workaround. Or the option two would be to actually have a patch release. We wanted to also discuss this with the whole community. And in case people are affected by these issues, and if you really want a patch release, we can do it. Otherwise, we can just document. So I guess
is there an easy workaround we can document or not?
For the pipelines issue, the solution is to migrate all your pipelines to the newer version, I guess.
The other option is to just re-upload them. You can also compile version 1 pipelines with version 1 and re-upload them.
Mm-hmm.
So can you compile a V with like the 1.8.22 version of the CLI? Can you compile it there and re-upload it and it will work?
This is what I did, I think, yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Sorry to talk, but if you have an existing pipeline, it will not run. But if you recompile with the newest version, it will run.
Is it possible to make a script or something that will automatically loop through and download and re-upload them all or something?
I mean, it's feasible. I can give you that.
In the end, yeah, it's possible. I guess the fix will land in the user side rather than in in the solution itself. For this issue, I don't know. It's the docs also suggest to migrate your pipelines to V2, but support for V1 pipelines is also there. It's supposedly is there as well. So I think many users expect this to just work after upgrading.
Yeah, I think it will really hurt the adoption of Kubeflow pipelines if people can't, because from the end user perspective, they won't go so far as to assume that there is a workaround. They'll just assume that it's not backwards compatible at all, you know? I think there
Go ahead.
must be a way that we can either make it automatic, you know what I mean? Just have a script which, if there is an old version of the pipeline present, it will loop over them. Or just include that in the actual app itself. But anyway, that seems like a question for the pipelines people. And are any of them here to answer, or?
Yeah, I think I don't see anyone from the pipeline working group though in this call. So we'll need to follow up with them anyway.
So look, I'd like to propose that we think about this in work effort and cost benefit analysis. So I think there's one option where we document these as known issues. And so for folks that are not using a distribution, this would be a community-based, it's just documented as a known issue. I'm wondering how long it would take. Do we have to document it anyway? And how long does this documentation on both of these known issues, how long will that take? The second part is, how long is it going to take us to create a new release? A 1.8. How many hours of work is that going to be?
I think the closer estimate is like 3 weeks for us to, once we have a fix, we will spend like 2 or 3 weeks for syncing and testing again.
You don't need to do all of them, to be clear. You can literally just do pipelines in this particular case. Everything else can just be kept the same. If this is a big enough issue that it probably deserves pipelines getting its own release internally anyway.
So let's talk about that for a second, because the only reason I'm being pedantic or whatever, trying to get a process here is this a P0? Is it a P1 or a P2? This will help whoever's the next release manager to understand, how do we approach this patch release for 1.9, right? So what's the community say on issue number 1, where we've potentially broken the VS Code with volumes?
Okay, right? Well, that one.
I need to. This has to be verified first, I think, before we.
Yeah, what is that one? Yeah, I don't even have an issue for that. What is that?
Yeah, the VS Code, I think, is very sensitive to the file system permissions. That's my current understanding.
Oh no, I've already solved that. I made the PR for that.
Ah, okay. Is the PR in master? Is it?
Oh wait, no, for VS Code. Oh, sorry, I did it for Jupyter. I did it for Jupyter. Sorry. Is there also a similar problem for for VS Code?
Probably. Maybe you should just take a look at it and see whether you can replicate this, because it works depending on the underlying storage.
Can you tell me the actual file which is causing the problem?
I don't have the file at the moment. I wanted to investigate this next week, but if you did fixes for this for Jupyter Lab, probably VS Code is also interesting.
Yeah, because like it's the reason will be that you're on a PR. What's this PR? Sorry, I'm just looking at someone messaged it. No, that's something else. But because the reason for Jupyter was, it's always been there. It's that Jupyter freaks out if specific files are not permissioned correctly, and shared PVC volumes often are backed by NFS, and NFS doesn't really have a Unix permission system. So oftentimes it just maps everything to 750, which isn't acceptable from Jupyter's perspective. So for Jupyter, what I did to fix it, which hasn't been released yet, is just tell Jupyter to ignore those files effectively. But if there is but if there's a similar issue with VS Code, I just need to know the file path. If you can tell me the file path.
Yeah, I will try to find the file path. And can you send me the PR?
I'll send you the other
for
one.
Jupyter Lab, then I can take a look at this as well and see whether this applies to VS Code.
Well, it's not. It doesn't apply in a direct sense, but it's the same. It's probably the same problem. So let me just get it. Anyway, let's move on.
You're right. The file system is the problem, but we probably have to expect that people use some non-standard stuff.
Well, not non-standard. This is for everyone.
Yeah. So perhaps we have a path to fix this. This sounds like a P1 to me. What about the second item where you have to delete and re-upload the old V1s? You have a workaround for this? This sounds like a P1 or a P2 to me.
I think that one's more important than the Jupyter one, because the Jupyter one can be fixed by, well, not necessarily fixed, but it may not be able to be fixed, actually, thinking about it, depending on your PVC environment.
Yeah, I think the other one, I would say it's the other way around, because recompiling and re-uploading can be done by the users themselves. Fixing or making it more robust against ugly file system permissions is something probably most users cannot.
I just wanted to agree with Julius in this sense, because I mean, technically the functionality that you recompile, I know that Ricardo made a point that it will lose like the run history, but I don't know, from the pipelines part, it has always been like we have made emphasis in that people to consider now writing their pipelines on the V2, and we left a long time to have V1 support for that. I know that in the documentation says that we still support V1, but I think that one promise of V1 is that when moved to V2 SDK is that you might have to recompile your V1 pipelines to run with 1.8. So I think that considering the two it will be more priority the VS Code if when Julius can report it.
Okay. So I think that, that's all good. Let's get to a decision on this. I think that we have to think about, do we have a path to fix these? Do we feel fairly clear? But if we look at the schedule, right, if there was a goal to get an 8.1 out before the holidays, we would need patches this week if we are going to have 2 weeks of testing. And the other thing is we would need users and distributions to step up and say that they would confirm to test this. So here's a question. If we went down the path where we decided not to document and we were going to create a new 1.8.1, are there users and distributions that would test the 1.8.1? Are there people now that feel like if we had these patches available and we made a 1.8.1, are there people that will step up today and say that they would test a 1.8.1?
Well, presumably it wouldn't be too big of a change except out of pipelines.
I understand that, Matthew. I'm not asking how big it is. I'm asking whether people have cycles to do it. Because there's going to be testing, there's going to be documentation, right? Documentation either way, either we document the known issue.
Well, like, I think a lot of distributions are in the process of adopting 1.8 as it stands anyway, so doing a little bit more testing with a small patch on one or two of the components probably wouldn't be a big deal. I mean, for my case, it wouldn't be for Duplicare, but for others.
Let's do a roll call. Canonical, Daniela, do you think that you would test it at 1.8.1?
I think we could do it.
You could do it.
Considering we know exactly the changes that
Right.
we're going to merge. Yeah.
What about somebody from IBM, either the IKS team or IBM Red Hat team? Do you guys think you would test a 1.8.1?
I'll defer to Red Hat folks here.
I need to bring the QE people into our world here. I haven't done that yet.
Okay.
So I can't say yes right now.
Okay, fair enough. And it would be a relatively fast turnaround if we wanted to get it done before the end of the year. Not that we have to, but it would be nice to finish it, only because Danielle is still being nice enough to run this as the release manager, and dragging this on into next year, you know, whatever. What about KF deploy from your side, Matthew? Would you test this?
Well, I mean, deploy KF is just in the next week or so going to release a beta or whatever for 1.8.0. So I will. The only issue is that even if we could do it before the end, it's not we as in me, but overall of the year, the problem is that the pipelines team might not be able to solve it before the end of the year. Because the pipelines team, like we can already fix the Jupyter and the VS Code one, but like the
Okay, I got it. It may not be doable by the end of the year. I got that. Janu, you think Nutanix would test a 1.8.1? Would you guys want that?
Sure, we can.
Okay. So look, we've got 4 or 5, Daniela. I think that, you know, at least we've got people that would test it if we could create it, which was one of my bigger concerns, is that people would have the cycles for that.
Okay, I think that's fair, but we still need the fix, right? And if we don't have a fix for those 2 things in this week, by the end of the week, I don't think that is going to be possible. Because people will start leaving for the holidays, and we need feedback. We need to probably reiterate a couple of times. So if it's not happening this week, I'm afraid we won't be able to do it unless we drag it to the next year.
Okay. Could we say that we look at this on next community meeting is next Tuesday? Okay, to see where we're at with those 2 issues and whether we have it, or do we need it by the end of the week?
It would be preferable by the end of the week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we need issues, we need people to look at it, we need to escalate to the KFP working group, and we need somebody from, I assume it's the notebooks working team, to fix the volume thing with the VS Code.
Well, I fixed one of them, but I just need an example of it, how it's breaking, so I can fix the other one.
All right, I think we have a plan there. Daniela, do you want to, it's your decision which way to go. How do you want to tie this up? What do you want to say for this?
So let's try to have those fixes in by the end of the week, and if that's the case, we can try the patch release. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. If those fixes are not here by the end of the week, I think
well, to be clear, it could happen next year, but that would be a bit late, maybe.
Yeah. So if that doesn't happen, I will just document the known issues and workarounds if any. Does that make sense?
I think the easiest solution for the pipelines one, which I think is more serious, because the notebooks one can be fixed by just updating an image without actually cutting a release, presumably, if it's the same as the Jupyter one. Is that we can just release a script for the fixing, right, for the pipelines.
Yeah, and or the community edition has the bug and the known issue and the workaround manual, And perhaps the people that are doing distributions can wait for the KFP fix and put it into their distribution, right? Because you could just cherry pick that, couldn't you?
It depends on how the people are doing the distributions. I think most people are probably just shipping the raw manifests in various ways. Deploy KF kind of is, mostly isn't, but not everyone's forked every component.
Yeah, I got it. Okay,
So,
let's move on from that.
Yeah.
Like, what about the 1.8.0 presentation?
Oh, so the machine where I had the video unfortunately broke, so I need to do it again, and I will be sending that to you probably by the end of the day.
Oh, so it's done.
Yeah. Everyone, thanks everyone for sharing their videos. It was just bad timing with my machine and it broke, but yeah, it's done.
Fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
great. I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, sure.
We'll have to have an opening, a video opening, drop the video, whatever, right? We'll have to
Yeah.
promote that up.
Sure, definitely.
Okay. Fantastic. Daniela, great job. Thank you very much. Really appreciate all your work there. Anything else?
Thanks, Daniel.
No, I guess I will just be communicating what the pipelines team has to say and the decision or what's the plan forward for the patch release or not. That's it.
Okay, what about 1.9?
All right, so the call for volunteers is open. There is an issue in Kubeflow community. If you're interested in participating in the release team in the newer one, please make sure that you leave a comment there. There is a release handbook where all the roles are specified, like all the roles that you can take in the team. So if you're interested, this is open to everyone in the community, whether you're new or have been around for quite some time. It's fine. Just make sure you comment there, and join the release team meetings on Mondays as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that we need to get a release team organized, and we need to update the roadmap, start to provide a vision of 1.9, what it includes. So I would say that needs to be done before the break, if possible. So that's perhaps a pretty big lift, but just writing down 3 or 4 major things that we're going to do in 1.9, I think would be directionally helpful. So
do you have dates?
Do we have dates? Let's see here. I'm putting my finger up in the air. I'm saying June, but I don't know when KubeCon or what our major release would be. I think there's a KubeCon usually in the second quarter in the US. Is that right? Something like that.
Okay, so end of March, or sorry, third week in March for Paris. I don't know what KubeCon in NA is.
Yeah, I don't think we can make March, especially if we want to have anything with the model registry. And so that would be some things that we would really want to think about what goes into 1.9. But there's all types of things that are possible for 1.9, and security in a lot of ways probably one of the major things. We'd have to hear from Julius. David is holding his head, which is good. I like to see it when people are holding their head, because I'm going to see if I put him on the spot and see if he's actually going to be the release manager. Or have you thought about it some more, David?
Yeah, just needs to be a few more time, a few more time to it.
Yeah, you just need a little bit more time to think about it.
2024 is in North America is actually all the way in November 12th through 15th.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to probably That's a weird statement. I'm probably going to attend that.
But that's far away for a 1.9. I mean, I don't think we should use that or yeah. What do you think?
Oh no. As so we try to make the release happen around some major event like KubeCon, but it's not necessary. Typically the releases or the full release cycle lasts around 6 months between development and actually releasing. So it would be nice to release somehow closer to a major event like KubeCon, but it's not really necessary. So
I think one problem that we should keep in mind is that the Kubeflow versions that we are supporting at the moment, I think it's up 125 and 126. They will be out of support quite soon, if I remember correctly. So having a supported Kubernetes underneath our Kubeflow clusters, maybe to some degree could steer the decision on the date. Maybe we should have something before the support runs out.
Also, what version of Istio are we using in the upstream one? Because like in my testing, everything works up to like Kubernetes 128 with the latest Istio. So
we have 1.17.5.
Because that's probably out of support as well. Let me just check.
Yeah, probably. Let me look up the support window for 126.
117 is definitely EOL, yeah.
And Matthew, were you able to run Kubeflow completely on one?
So it's kind of a bit hard to know exactly because I'm like deploy.kf is a little bit different internally, but all the core apps do work, yes. Because the core apps, but I don't use any of the core, like the actual tools, the components work, but the core pieces are forked in deploy.kf. So
Okay, when can we get the release team people assigned by, or at least volunteers? What do we need? Before the end of the year, definitely. I would say next week or the week after would be the preference.
yeah, I would say so.
Right, we can't leave this hanging. So
let's have at least the release team manager by next community meeting, and the full release team by the next one. So in 2 weeks, the full team.
oh.
Yeah.
If you're, I have a question here.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, we as Red Hat want to get more involvement in the release. We want to start in the 1.9, but we would like to help to get more involvement in this release other than just be the distribution liaison. So that I'd like to know who I can ask after me for a guidance about other roles we could get for this upcoming 1.9 release. I don't believe that.
Are you meaning like from a?
There's already one.
I was saying, are you meaning from a code perspective, or are you meaning from a release like logistics perspective?
Yeah, release. I mean, logistics perspective.
Okay, so I just posted an issue in the channel. Make sure you check that out, because in the issue it's described like the whole process, and there's a link to the release handbook. In the release handbook, it says all the roles that you can take in the release team. So they are really well defined there, the responsibilities and all of that. So definitely take a look at it. If you still have questions, you can reach the release team in the Slack channel. So it's called just release. And I'll try to provide a link as well. And if you still have questions after joining the meeting, contacting us, you can contact me directly, and I can provide you more insight as well.
Sure. I'll take notes. Thank you.
Sure.
So while we're in brainstorming mode for 1.9, and just thinking through the dates we just talked about, could we target graduation in CNCF for KubeCon NA?
I think we're probably a little bit too early to know what the CNCF might require of us there, but we have obviously the list of tasks that we are currently working through, but there are other things that might prevent us. And obviously the CNCF does make it pretty clear that any time close to the KubeCon might become difficult to get things done.
Yeah. I had we have I'm hearing myself twice. I was going to say there are some TOC members that I asked to go talk with the Kubeflow people at KubeCon a couple weeks back. I think one of our folks has recently gone through the checklist and tried to pick off some documents. I don't think it's impossible, considering we're talking about 50 weeks almost. But we have to intentionally do it. That's why I'm bringing it up. Like it won't happen if we don't, decide to do it. So, and I don't really hear that discussions on graduation really on this call. Maybe there's a different call it's happening on, and I can talk about
maybe
it there.
you should join all of the working group meetings, as for example, notebooks, manifests, pipelines, working group meetings, and there are quite a few GitHub issues regarding the CNCF stuff.
And also, yeah, Jeremy, to add to this, like I would suggest you to follow what Anna is doing. So Anna invested so much energy to actually complete the checklist for incubation, because we haven't done this yet. And I think after this, we only need to speak about graduation process, because there is so many things that we need to do even right now before moving to graduation, right? And even start discussion around this. So there is a checklist. I can drop an issue here if you're wondering. But Anna is working so hard on this, so I think she probably needs help with this as well.
Someone suggested I go to all these working group meetings, but is that really the best?
That's not necessary in this case. It's definitely not necessary in this case. Yeah, the working groups, some of them will be working on it, but it seems like mostly the effort is coming from Anna.
Okay.
You
We're
don't
obviously
need
all working on it. We're all obviously working on it, but she's spearheading it.
The question is, the working group meetings are not that relevant for the CNCF graduation. Yes, as Matthew says, they are relevant for taking part in the development and providing new features, improving stuff, and so on.
Yeah, I get all that. No, understood. Okay. All right. So if we look through this issue that you linked in the chat here, we might be able to find some items to work on before graduation. I was just trying to bring up what are some big ideas for 2024? It feels like that is an attainable goal, and if we agree on it, I don't exactly know how to capture agreement on that, but maybe there's nothing formal.
By the way, so that issue might be a bit out of date. So I'm under the CNCF adoption section. I'm putting the incubation/onboarding tasks. Here's the main one here from the actual CNCF themselves. It's under the next section of the thing.
1139. Got it.
That's on the TOC one, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's also Josh's one, but I don't know. Some of them are. I think some of these issues don't seem to be the most active.
Well, I think we can just reach out to Anna on Slack and see where we go. I think that's enough for now.
Jeremy, my gut feel is even if we cut into 3 smaller releases, I mean, I think we're probably going to take us 3 releases to get to graduation. That's just my gut feel. We'll do a chunk. We'll look at it. We'll do another chunk. We'll get really close, but there'll still be a couple things left over, and we'll have to do a 3rd one. But maybe we'll do better and we can do it in 2. I don't think we can do it in 1 release. I think it would be a lot of stuff.
Do we know the requirements here? I think that's a different set of requirements entirely.
I've scanned them, some of them. I can't say that I've gone through them in detail. I thought there was a lot of stuff in security. Julius could probably give us like a list of 5 things that would be hard for us to do.
Irrespective of that, I think we should plan for our Kubeflow 2.0 release, probably along timelines that we are discussing, KubeCon North America, right? So if we, and
what would that even mean though? Like, to be clear, that doesn't really mean anything. Like,
maybe I think that's something that as a community we can think about. Like, what do we actually plan to bring something like a story which is not there yet, right?
Like my perspective is that there's no reason to do any kind of 2.0 at the project level. There are already 2.0 projects going on. One was just released with pipelines, and Notebooks is planning for the next release of Kubeflow to do a 2.0. Like it's
so
not
one example
like,
would be the model registry that talk.
yeah, but that doesn't need a new overall version. Like a 2.0 implies a breaking change.
No, that is true. I'm saying like for the community to have an announcement, like that would be like if we when we are talking to community and saying that we have a 2.0 release and list features and the enhancement that we are planning to have, that would have a bigger noise around, right? Than having a normal release. So
I'm
we
all
can just
for a 2.0. Yeah, for multiple reasons. One of them is the technology. The other is the process change, right? We are evolving as a community, and by the end of next year, we will be much evolved from where we are now in terms of Google ownership and everything else. We'll have made a transition. I think it's a good idea to have a 2.0 kind of discussion to reintroduce Kubeflow to the community again, right?
It definitely wouldn't be it would be a branding question, I think. And
there could be technology. Look, we've been customized, and a lot of people are saying they want Helm. We haven't had a model registry. We've said no Spark. Now we're talking about Spark. These are pretty big differences, right?
I completely agree there. And what we have to really do is have a roadmap, right? As a Kubeflow as a community, what we really want to achieve. Like maybe like that next release might be like too short. So 1 year plan would be really good, right? Like we will try to get max out of the next release. And like at least in my mind, for example, LLM ops, for example, right? Like that's something that I really want to have something in that space, because Kubeflow doesn't have a role there. If you really see the landscape or any blogs that are talking about LLMs, Kubeflow is not there, right? So that's something that's a good story that we can really push in the LLM.
Totally agree with you, John. Like
Although,
I think that's if we look at it, we should. This is a really long and actually critical topic. It's going to eat into. Well, please let's not run a half hour over again today. I think we need a brainstorming doc for relief, like for what 2024 objectives different companies have, and what's good for the community as well. If it's not already captured somewhere, like a roadmap. I also don't care about the version. The most important thing is the code quality. But if others agree that it's important from a optics perspective, then I totally understand.
Sure.
Anyway, let's table this and. Like this really seems like something that will go on forever. But we agree that we're doing a lot in the community, and if you have resources that are able and willing to support LLM workloads on Kubeflow, then we encourage you to get involved with the working groups that you think are there, or if there's not a working group already, propose that one's created for the area that you plan to donate into. But yeah, obviously it's all dependent on contributors. That's the main thing, right?
Matthew, what I'm trying to say is, I think we need a larger story around Kubeflow, right? It is not just about working group. It is kind of like, for example, the one that I was talking in the last Kubeflow summit is from a data scientist or someone who's trying purely in the LLMs. How can they train and tune and then finally get serving out? We have all the pieces, right? Like we have the important pieces. Maybe model registry is missing. Yes, that's a different piece altogether. But we don't have a cohesive story around to actually tell to the world that Kubeflow can solve your problem, right? So it is like we need a bigger roadmap or like kind of a like story around Kubeflow, not just individually in the working groups. But yes, I totally agree with you, right? We have to work within working groups as well. And that's where in the training operator, we are having new SDKs, etc., right? And we'll have examples in Gatib. And in KSF also, we are working how we can get the LLM, better LLM engines, etc. But
I mean, what you're saying
as
is sensible. I think the simplest thing to do to solve that would be to create a group that is not actually about making code. It's just simply about producing documentation and examples for using Kubeflow and onboarding people who use Kubeflow. You know what I mean? Like,
I
and if
think
you've got people who
also-
want to
Tom
write
had
that,
his hand raised. And
Yeah.
waiting patiently. Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah. Sam, hands here. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, when that group gets made around LLMs, please include Red Hat because we've been doing a lot of stuff around LLMs and Kubeflow recently. So we'd be more than happy to help contribute some of that.
Actually, I think we have a demo on tap today if there's time towards the end for what we're thinking.
Absolutely.
Nice.
And I just wanted like one small point. I 100% agree with Jono, and it's like I spoke with so many people, and the major problem with Kubeflow, all the components closely coupled. And like if we can, bring these components together, and the base is right there. Basically, I spoke with already so many people who are using Kubeflow for LLM already. They're using training operator, or maybe they're using Kserve. So we need to kind of like combine this component together, provide the clear story around how to run, where it is LLM, whether it is, models who can do different type of, like the AI ML workloads. But basically, we need to stitch these pieces together and answer the question, what is Kubeflow at the end, right? So then, like, so many people adopt Kubeflow and use it much better for the different use cases which we have in the industry. So let's definitely, I think
yeah. We could just start by making a user experience working group, or a user experience thing.
Go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, and again, I mean, this is something that actually I wanted to bring to this call. I mean, exactly that topic, because from our perspective, right, IBM and Red Hat, from all internal users, some of the folks that to talk in the industry, this glue actually, how we stitch things together, it's one of the biggest gap today. There is no other community that is really kind of positioned themselves like, hey, this is how we actually stitch things together. This is like a standard way to do things. And I do believe this community has a lot of the pieces, the building blocks. We are using a lot of them, as I'll tell you guys later, contributing some of that, and hopefully can even contribute more directly in this community. But I just want to say that again, I mean, this is like really a pain point, right? So if you can kind of organize ourselves towards that framing, like, hey, this is the glue, right? Kind of one-stop shop to get it started. I think that will go a long way, certainly for our use cases and certainly for a lot of the people that IBM and Red Hat we talk to. Just want to throw that out. And again, I'll talk more about that if you have time today.
Fantastic. I think one request going forward on this is as much my problem as everyone else's. We probably need to put the 1.9 discussion and what goes in it into the release team, and let the release team kind of hash it out and then bring it back to the community and give a status update. And if you want to get into that, hashing out what goes into it, go to the release team meeting, because we have so much to cover in this community call. We have like 15 other items we're not going to get to, right? I think this is great. I love the energy around it. I just think that we need to move the 1.9 discussion to the release team meeting and make this more of a status of what the release team says on what the planning is. I don't mind comments and things, but if we go on for 15 minutes or 20 minutes on any of these topics, we'll never get to all of them. Let's move on to the CNCF adoption, because this is super critical, right? Important to me is this steering committee elections. I don't know if Amber is here.
No, but I am. So we have already with Civics, which is the platform that we're going to use. There is a document that we're going to start receiving nominations in the next few days. Today we're going to do like a dry run of the election. What we were going to ask from the community is that, Matthew, last time you show us like people who were the PR, like the metrics that had the sum of activities, PRs and everything, if you can share with us so we can actually start filtering people who are qualified or not.
So it's in the, so to be clear, what is the system you're planning to use? Because the election proposal explicitly says the system we have to use.
Civis is this one.
Is that the one that is in the proposal?
I.
When you
I
say,
have,
is that a nomination system or a voting system? Because for
oh,
the
this is
voting,
the voting system. The
yeah,
nomination
you're not
is
allowed to use that, sadly. You have to use Electo, which is the CNCF tool.
okay.
So this is the proposal that was adopted by the community and the interim steering committee. The dashboard link is in this page.
Mm-hmm.
The one that I showed you, the dev stats one, it's the link which says dashboard. The Electo system is linked there. I believe the developer of that system is willing to chat with us about getting it done. But obviously the CNCF...
we already have the talk with the CNCF, but yeah, I'll have to get back with Amber with that. So yeah.
Like, I'm not saying we can't amend this, but there are other that would require amending it. And also, I don't know if that system has the same voting characteristics as the Electo one. I don't know if it does or not. I have no idea. So.
All right. Good.
But if you want to amend it and propose it, and that would make it easier, then that's fine too. But I think let's try and do it with this system first, if we can.
Okay. Yeah. So the thing is, we advance on civics, not in the with the system that you have. So we already talked with someone at the CNCF. So we're going to retake the conversation with them today. Well, I'll follow with Amber today.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's impossible to amend it. I'm just saying, like, we just need to be pragmatic and also careful about not just randomly doing things that are not in the proposal.
But I'm a little bit, I want to go back for a second because it looks like yesterday nomination phase to open. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. We haven't yet shared the document. It was supposed to be released yesterday, but I wasn't being able to meet with Amber. So today we're going to meet with Amber to put this part. We said November 30th, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. No, it just had some dates here. So November 30th or sometime in the next couple days, we'll see an opening of a nominate. Where are we going to see that? Is that on Kubeflow Discuss and also on Slack or something like that?
In both issue and I will put I will email everyone on the Kubeflow Google group.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I'll have to go back with Amber with another election officer, and then we'll follow on this.
Okay. Anything else on the steering committee elections that you need from the community, right? We need to get people that are going to be nominated for the steering committee need to get ready to get their names in, right? And is there some process that they're going to have to do? Is it complicated, or is it fairly easy to go through the nomination?
No, it's fairly easy. The only thing is that we'll have to manually verify that people that are nominated actually have the requirements. That's the only thing that we'll have to do manually, but that's Amber and us already committed to this.
All right, I'm going to selectively move forward, if that's all right, David. Anything else that you want to provide an update on?
No, only what we wanted to have today was the tool that we didn't saw for validating that the nominations people are actually qualified to the nomination.
So yeah, to be clear, that's just the dashboard in the link that I sent, and just set the date. So you might need to update the date that it says to the date that you cut off for the nominations. For yesterday.
Yeah.
All right. The Kubeflow CLA. Anna had asked to move this forward, so I'd like to get the community kind of around this. We discussed the CNCF, using the CNCF CLA. I am now, since we need a decision, I'm saying it's fine to use the community CLA. I think there was another option as well, but kind of my take is that I'd like to keep it as simple as possible and do one thing, which is try to just do the CNCF CLA. Do people have opposed that? Do they have another? Is there some strong reason why we can't use the CNCF CLA? Is that just not workable for people?
The one thing that we probably do need to do though is if people refuse to sign the new CLA, which some people will just because they're not involved with the community anymore, we need to probably, this is a good time to clear out the old members of the org.
Oh, yes.
Like, so like effectively we go down the list and everyone who's had a contribution in the last, so effectively my proposal is that anyone who hasn't contributed in the last 18 months just gets removed by default with no option of being re-added. But the people who have contributed in the last 18 months get the option to sign the new CLA, and if they choose to, then they can continue being a member. Otherwise, they get removed as well.
All right,
Yeah, we need to be.
That's a different issue. That's like pruning the list. I'm just talking about, can we use the CNCF CLA? Are there any strong objections to moving from the current CLA to the CNCF CLA? Just as has anybody got heartburn on that? Okay, I'm gonna say and push the steering committee, unless I hear differently, that it looks good to me, and we want to merge that going forward to the CNCF CLA. I think this is a very important thing for us to get done, to move away from the Google-based ownership of this project. So that's why I'm trying to push this through.
Yeah. As I'm saying, my only concern is that what does it mean? Obviously, we'll stop new contributions, but like without signing, right? You know, the new PR will, if you make a PR, it'll check that you've signed it, right? But I just don't know what it means from like the other types of contributions that people could make. But anyway, that's fine.
Yeah, I think we have to filter that stuff, but if we can't make it work with the CNCF CLA, then we've got bigger problems.
Oh yeah, I think that would be, I'd be very surprised if most people are contributors to Kubernetes or other CNCF apps already, so.
All right, let's keep working our way down here. Possible to create an end user experience working group. I think that makes sense.
That was just what I was saying earlier. Sorry, I just put that on the notes so we don't forget it.
So there's a bunch of items here. I don't know. I think the Spark team had made some particular, and the model registry had made some particular updates. I'd like to check with them and then also touch on the Feast and the Helm stuff. Is there an update on the Spark activities that somebody could give in a few minutes?
Yeah, just before we go, maybe we can give 5 minutes to Carlos, so 4 minutes.
Yeah, go ahead, Carlos. Go ahead, do your
thing.
I
was actually planning to do like a quick demo, so I'm thinking now, Andre, probably better to save this for the training working group, so we can do like some justice. So I don't want you only have 4 minutes. I wanted to take you guys through like a quick demo, see if that works for everyone, and maybe you can come back here. I can use the 4 minutes though. Up to you guys.
Why don't you give us the 4 minute,
okay.
4 minute update, and then if you want to do the demo, we'll schedule a first thing for next meeting.
I'll be happy to use the 4 minutes. So I'll grab the screen for a second if you guys don't mind. Can I grab this screen?
Oh yeah, here. So I'll stop sharing. I'm sorry.
Okay, very good. Let's do this. Very good. I have actually one quick chart. Okay, so we talk about LLMs, actually it's perfect timing, right? Because from our perspective, we're really trying to enable and really do the whole end-to-end life cycles of foundational model on Kubernetes, right? And of course, we know that this is a very heterogeneous workflow. When you say we, I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of the work that's happening internal to IBM to train some of our models and the work that we do with Red Hat to build this platform, right? The challenge here is that it's not only training or serving, right? There's a lot of things that happen, as you guys know very well, before I actually get to train these models. For example, we have to do internally with the petabytes of data that you need to tokenize and so on. Our biggest challenge is the fragmentation that you're just talking about, right? So you need a lot of things, right? We are placing some bets. What are the key things? But then what is the glue is one of the things that we found a lot of gaps and you'll be working towards, right? I wanted to give you like a teaser for some of the things that you're building in the open, how you're using Kubeflow, and some of the things that I think we can build, bring to this community. One concrete action that we took about 2 years ago, we started this project called Codeflare, right? By necessity, because again, we're trying to just find a way to provide a simplified user experience where folks could focus on Python interface to deal with both interactive and batch jobs, right? And I'll describe in a little bit, but it's all around like how you define resources, right? And GPUs you need and things like that. How you can just bring your PyTorch or Ray code and all the heavy lifting, right? How it actually gets into a container run on Kubernetes, all of that is handled by this SDK. Have some pointers there, you guys can check it out. I'm giving like some pointers here, but if you're interested, please join tomorrow the training work group. I'll do actually a live demo of this. This is really sitting on top of two key things, right? So we use Ray framework for scale out Python, right? This is kind of happening under the covers in many ways. So we expose the Ray API, but also we can run some libraries on top of Ray, so the users just focus on the high level. And then for PyTorch, we do also, I mean, we have a lot of investments in PyTorch, things like the TorchX job launcher for PyTorch and how this integrates into the things underneath. The Kubeflow training operator, of course, plays a role there as well when you're doing match. And at the bottom, we have this Kubernetes native job scheduler, MCAT, right? We are bringing all of this together in some very concrete use cases, right? I'll mention just this one as a teaser for you guys. Please come back for more details. So we'll be actually using this whole stack with NASA to train the very first geospatial foundation models. So we talk about LLMs all the time. We like to use the term foundation model, which is the transformer technology applied even beyond. And see, you can actually, here you can actually see some of the experience that we enable with joint with NASA, right? Using some of the pieces that I described. One very important piece to point out here, this is like a multi-cluster environment, right? One of the challenges this community is that these things, they don't happen like in isolation, one single environment. In our case, we have to train the model on our own GPU cluster in IBM Cloud, but NASA is actually doing fine-tuning of these on their own public cloud environment, right? So the idea is how you can really abstract the nuances of how these things really run on a managed Kubernetes, right? So you see the right-hand side, some of these things in action. There's an SDK. You can basically trigger a batch job from a PyTorch code, no Kubernetes knowledge required. The next one is fine-tuning, same idea. You bring code that is running on your laptop. Scientists are familiar with doing these things on the laptop, how you can bridge that gap from an SDK to deploy, say, PyTorch-based code. I know this is very high level, so again, I'm kind of more like teasing you guys to come back. There is a lot, of course, intersection with some of the training operator in the SDK. We think that we can kind of add to that, bringing some of the elements for data preprocessing, fine-tuning. So that's why we're bringing this to this community, some of the patterns that you see internally. But I'm kind of close saying that this is all happening in the open. So I'm very much interested to, number one, share some of these patterns with these communities that we learned through like 2 years of experience training models, both internally and with partners like NASA, and how we can find opportunities to contribute some of this code. So I think very timely, given like the LLM interest, LLM ops, FM ops. So I'm kind of giving like the teaser now, and if you're interested, I'll be talk more about this and giving actual live demo in the training work group tomorrow. And just kind of to brag, I mean, this model has been the open. So the model that I show training these stacks, actually Hugging Face now is a joint model from NASA and IBM, again, fully in the open. And you continue to use this stack for that. I hope that was not very rushed. I just wanted to tease you out, but we are here to, of course, again, share these and discuss if you can find a place for some of this technology in this community, if that makes sense.
I have one question regarding unduplicating efforts. We have KubeRay as a component within Kubeflow. Are you using that, or would you be willing to contribute there, or are you bringing your own KubeRay?
Yeah, so very good. So we are using KubeRay, and we work very, very close with the KubeRay community, as you guys probably know. The main contribution that we have is KubeRay MCAD integration, the job scheduler that I mentioned, right? And of course, the SDK on top, right? So the short answer is yes, we're using KubeRay, and we are contributing pieces that
are you using KubeRay from the Kubeflow repository? Because we have a KubeRay version inside our Kubeflow repositories.
No, we're using vanilla KubeRay straight from Ray repository. So I'd like to learn more about your packaging and how you can use it, right? But yeah, we're using vanilla KubeRay, let's put it this way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I will just send you a message, then you can have a look at the QBrain you get and see whether this is suitable for you.
Okay. Yeah.
Love to hear more from you, Carlos, how, like, what the integration points, etc. So we can talk more.
Yeah,
we'll be there in the training working group.
Perfect. So I'll see you tomorrow, and then I'll give you more details. And again, a live demo of this, and we can kind of blow it up. Okay.
This is great. Great work. Great update. Appreciate all the energy, and let's see how we can evolve on that. Any other comments before we move on to a couple other topics? So is there, okay, what do we want to do? We're over time. I would like to get an update on the Spark, the model registry, and there was this discussion about Feast that seemed to be something that was interesting, at least that we should discuss.
Just for the Feast one, I could just quickly say that I'm still in talks with the leadership of TechCon, so let's just move that to next week. And they may not even be willing. They may not even be willing, to be clear.
Okay, but the opening here is that Tecton is not going to support Feast going forward.
And are theoretically open to donating it to the CNCF through us.
That's interesting because we did reach out to them as well, Matthew, to see what their intentions were, and they just got back to us saying, we'll get back to you. Nothing meaningful. So if it comes through here, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think it's a good outcome for the community, personally. But that's
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for mentioning it. I forgot to even say it today.
Can you at least give a context? Is it for both Feast or Tecton? Just
also, Tecton, the company, is separate from Feast, the open source project. The open source project has its own users, contributors, but Tecton has, for whatever reason, decided that they're not going to commercially support it anymore. And so they need a new home for it. In the same way that the Spark operator needs a new home, you know?
Yeah, let's do it next week. Thank you, Matthew, for the context. Thank you.
So we're like the home for wayward ML projects. The Spark operator, is there any update on that?
Yeah. So quickly, maybe Josh. So we've been discussing with a few folks during this week with AWS. There's some teams from Apple. We still kind of so there is a proposal in Apache Foundation to donate new Java-based operator. And we try, I think this operator will be the operator, and this has already been accepted by Apache Foundation. So I think for the long term, for multi-year plan, this will be the de facto standard to running Spark application on Kubernetes cluster. But the problem is because we need to support so many people, so many customers who are using the Google operator, there is still interest to donate this project under the Kubeflow umbrella. So we kind of can provide the clear guidelines for multi-year effort of how to migrate people to this new Java-based operator. Because there are some features which is not supported in the new one, and we still need to find the place for people to contribute an existing operator for maybe 2 to 3 years, and think about migration.
And Andre, let me jump in and add one thing there. I think that's important, which is that new operator doesn't really exist. They're saying ETA for the new operator to go live in 1.0 is 6 months from now.
Yep.
So there's a 6-month period where people will have no option but the older operator, and it's kind of currently not being maintained very actively. So there's kind of a gap in people's needs in the community for having the operator have updates and be maintained and have releases, so on and so forth. So go ahead, Andre. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I think that's right. So we're still looking for the comments from the community to the doc that we started about adopting the existing Spark operator to Kubeflow. But establishing the working group data, I still think we should be our the goal for the model registry, for the Spark, for Dask, for Ray, for all this kind of discussion that we have. We need to have a new working group data, and that is what I was proposing.
Can I propose distributed processing instead of data, because data is a bit ambiguous?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah, go ahead.
The naming, I think we can haggle over, but does this mean that we're supporting code and that we're having a working group meeting and it's going to be scheduled? And there'll be code deliveries? I mean,
yes. So yeah,
some type of integration with Kubeflow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so in the proposal, kind of we added the few initial people who want to be part of the owners file, but we're looking for more people. especially after reInvent, which happening right now, the folks from AWS will discuss about it with a few customers who actually maybe also willing to be part of the owners files. And it's like, commit on some deliverables and integrations. And I already added a few integration in the doc with the existing Kubeflow components like training operator or Kubeflow distributions or profile controllers or profile controller, right? So if anyone is interested of using like Google Spark operator and just to see how we can integrate this in some sort of AML workloads, feel free to reach out to me or comment to the doc so we can start the discussion about the people who can be in the owners files.
I'm going to make one unfair request on this one, and that is if you guys could think about how we put this one to bed when it's done, how we go into support with it as a community. So like the process.
You mean like the process of supporting this component, or what do you mean, Josh, exactly?
This component, if this component, for example, people start to migrate away from it, or there's a new version or the Java bit, whatever, how do we as a community get out of the support obligation for it?
Yeah, sorry. I think so from my understanding, this is my personal opinion, but I think the working group data should be, or data like distribution, data processing, wherever we're going to have the name, will be responsible to provide the AML community guidelines for how to migrate from this Spark operator to the de facto Spark operator if this will be, like the 1.0 in the future. So this is like a multi-year effort, which we will spend, and this working group should be responsible for providing all these guidelines, all this integration with existing Kubeflow components, how to use Spark with training operator, Spark with KServe, or maybe like Spark with Kubeflow pipelines, right? And which kind of operator we're going to use for the long term, definitely we will think about it. We will think about it in a multi-year effort.
One question, Andrew. Did I hear it right? That you're saying this is just for 2-3 years, and then we have to the plan is to migrate entirely to the Apache one. Is that did I hear it right?
Yeah. So So the thing is we still the existing customers still use it in production, and there are so many people who still use it in production. So by adopting this project on the Kubeflow, we kind of giving the short term, place for them to support their Spark workloads. Because there are still some features which people want to contribute to the Spark operator, but because it is the lack of maintenance, there is no way of them to contribute it back, right? And the new one, as Ras said, that will be only in 6 months, will be available in 1.0, maybe later. So we need to find a place for Spark operator right now to leave the Google one. Does make sense, Jen?
Yes. I'm happy if we can get a team to do that. But our concern is always with the team to support it, right?
Yeah, I
think coming back to Josh's point. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Russ. You want to say
I don't know if you all can hear me okay, but
yeah, we can. Yeah.
I just wanted to come back to Josh's point.
Yeah, I think we lost you right now.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I think my audio is cutting out. I'm sorry. If you all can hear me, Andre, can you just say yes? I can hear you.
Yep.
Okay. I think coming back to Josh's point, I think it's a really good point. If there's a short-term path or a medium-term path to convert and go to the other operator, we should just be very clear about what those standards are and what it means to go put something into support mode or something that's no longer maintained. Just so folks have it. I think right now you have an older community that's using the existing operator, and then you have a new operator being proposed. And in general, that, we have to get that community, or the Spark team has to get that community to buy into the new operator and be open to migrating. And then if we have a clear migration path from one to the other, it will help folks get value they need to get. And additionally, it will help the Kubeflow community not have to maintain things for longer than necessary. If that makes sense. So I fully agree with Josh's point. That's all I have.
Yeah, and I guess there are so many things how we can bring Spark to the more AML world, because right now there is huge problem of running Spark with AML workloads with PyTorch, TensorFlow, JAX, and other things, right? So I guess like there are huge opportunities how the people in this new working group can be work on such things. And it doesn't really matter which kind of operator they're going to use for the long term, whether it's Java based, Go based, right? It's more about integration with existing AML workloads on Kubernetes, right? With training operator, with KT, with pipelines, right? And I think this is like tremendous amount of opportunities we can work on for the long term. Yeah, so I hope that makes sense.
I appreciate that. Can we get an update from the model registry side? Is there some updated progress we've made on moving the model registry forward?
Oh yes, Josh. Per your per community suggestion last week on the discussions, I put together a proposal. A little bit based on the Spark proposal formatting. I don't know whether the one the document is in my private repo, so we need to move it into the that's one thing I probably need somebody's assistance to move it into a public repository somewhere in if Kubeflow has something like that. So that but this document showcases what our approach as to what we are proposing, and in the format that's the same as the
you want to give us a quick 2-minute overview of what that doc looks like while you're making it?
Maybe I can share my screen and yeah, that would be hopefully.
Thanks, Carlos, too. I know you got to go. Okay.
Let's use it. Okay, share. See my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this would be the document. So one thing I'm glad to report in that we reached out to some of our IBM counterparts, and couple contributors who are already contributing to Kubeflow pipelines have agreed to help us with this endeavor. So there was a question last week that it would be nice if there were multiple companies involved. So at least we are at least checking that box right now. I also hope to send out a community email asking for more people who are interested in participating with it. I put in some motivation why we are doing it. There's some text around that. I was suggesting another working group, but we could go with what Spark folks are suggesting. Having a single working group, that's fine. There is some high-level architecture stuff there, and how we are trying to do. There's some text in terms of we are not trying to be a control plane. We are just trying to be a passive repository, and along those lines, there is an architecture diagrams. We wanted to do like a multi-step in there in terms of incubation, where we bring forward the current Google community project ML data as is and propose a solution around it for a end of Q1 delivery in 2024. So that's about 3 to 4 months from now. I think this is a very achievable target because this is what we have currently working as a Red Hat implementation, Red Hat supported what we are doing in the ODH community already. So I think we can get there. And we have a little bit of a bigger, what we wanted to do is, since ML metadata is going into maintenance mode, we want to take parts of it and rewrite it into a Go-based server and re-implement some of the features that were lacking in there. So that's a kind of a block diagram on our vision into how we want to do that there. It kind of goes into an explanation of different components, and also goes with the integration or our thinking around how it will integrate with the model serving, whether it's a K-serve or model mesh along those lines. So you read through that, and it also goes through the how we are going to be dealing with the V2 version of the KFP pipelines. We have not really thought about the support of V1, just the V2 version of it. So there's something along those lines. There is some integration parts, how we can do with the notebooks, our security metrics, some of the implementation plan details. That's what we have right now.
When does KFP v1 support go sustaining it? I think it's probably 2025, right? So if you deliver this at the end of 24, will there be v1 pipelines?
Right. That's something we can discuss. At least in our current proposal, we have not put that one in there. But if that becomes the a bottleneck, or that becomes a requirement, right? Must have, then then we need to rethink a little bit of the architecture wise. It won't change because it still is using underneath it, but it may be a little bit more work on our side to deliver that. We have not
make it a
evaluated
stretch.
that side of it.
My idea would make that a stretch goal, really.
Mm-hmm.
Not a must-have. Go ahead.
So
yeah, I was going to say, the modularity side of it doesn't really depend on anything that V1 itself does. We are reusing the MLMD server, like the architecture diagram there shows, which would be shared in a V2 deployment. You can make it so that the underlying MLMD and the ML metadata bit is shared. But in V1, we could have it so that a V1 pipeline is doing its own thing for its metadata store. We just won't have like an integrated view of the environment where the metadata from the V1 pipeline is not being shown in the model registry at the same time.
So at this point, what we are looking, Josh, is, as you were saying last couple of weeks, you were asking for how can we take this for a vote. That's one, and how we can garner the more community support. On the second one, we talked about sending an email to the Kubeflow community and asking for any more interested parties and taking a look at this proposal once we get it into a public spot, right? That's one, and we're putting to the vote. And if that goes through, we kind of are looking at, how we can get bootstrapped in, like, hey, how can we get a couple repositories set up? I mean, we have the ODH community ones, but, we would like to put this one in, find a proper place where we can donate our existing code and start refining it to fit it into Kubeflow community and that standards and along those lines. So,
can you get the shared link to the community
for this document, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly. I was asked, I need a place where I can hang this, right? If there is a Kubeflow community has a Google Drive or something, I can put it in there, but I don't have access to it. That's what I was looking for and help with.
We just
Ramesh, can I ask you? Yeah, go ahead, John.
No, we just do it from the personal account.
Yeah, you can do it via like the Google Doc, right? Just a shareable link.
Yeah, if you just change the sharing permissions to anyone with links or something.
Make it so they can comment probably rather than edit. Otherwise, you're going to end up with crazy stuff.
Okay.
May I just ask a quick question? I know we're like a lot of our time, but maybe just a quick one, Josh.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just like wondering. So I think it's great. Thank you for sharing this, Ramesh. Like, did you ever like considering to use this kind of registry for, we mentioned about cloud native, like registry for foundational models, because like we've been working in training operator for providing this some sort of like model providers, right? I think the integration between the registry and, for example, distributed training operators will be really like great for us, similar to KSORF, right? Because for the fine tuning, we need to have a full place like the cache layer between your distributed PyTorch jobs and the models, right? If you want to use for the fine tuning, right? So maybe we can expand this, right, for other integrations as well.
Exactly. We have not, we have not obviously looked into it, that particular use case, but the way we are designing is certainly possible, right? We keep saying that it's a passive repository. The way is we are not trying to make this a central coordinator. We have flipped the model. We are saying that, hey, we will hold the your status information, but based on that status information, like if you look at the diagram I was in the integration with the model serving, we collect the if you want to deploy a model, we collect the metadata to deploy the model in our model registry, but we don't actually become the coordinator, go deploy that model. Somebody else looks at that information and deploys the model, right? So in the same way, it's a dumb repository in so many respects. So, but it's a extensible dumb repository, right? So you could definitely build a repository for your needs on the distributed workloads, put that metadata inside it, and based on that, you can do whatever the other actions you want to do.
So in your feed, you have actually put multiple components, right, including serving. So it might be good if you can actually add these use cases also, like particularly integrations with the Kubeflow components, the possible cases, right? That would definitely help. And that would require some amount of help from the working group as well. But again, that's something that would be really useful while reading the document.
Yeah, so our idea is that the model registry itself doesn't mandate what goes into the model registry, in the sense that it's leveraging the generic schema from MLMD to store context executions and artifacts, but you get to decide how you want to model the metadata that's coming from different components, right? So you would create your own context types and artifact types and so on and so forth, depending upon what the context, what the Kubeflow component wants to store in there. Andre, going back to your question, were you asking about storage in the model registry itself? Because that's another kind of critical decision we have made, that the model registry itself won't be a place where you actually store the model data. It's just going to store the metadata.
Yeah. So we're speaking about MLMD, not like exactly like the model. So
Exactly.
I just want to like understand like the scope of the model registry. Is it just a replacement of MLMD or something more about like the maybe cloud native foundation, the storage for foundation models, right? For example, not for like for the world, but maybe like for your cluster, right? When you maybe for example like
Yeah, so what we have figured so far, I mean, we can work together on this problem as a community, right? Is that storage is kind of its own problem, right? Because you have storage and you have credentials for storage and stuff, and you need some kind of external like storage service of sorts, almost at the same level as model registry itself. I mean, you could combine the functions together and create something that solves both your metadata and data storage problems together. But yeah, data storage typically happens to be like a much more complex problem, because because of the scale, right? Depending upon the kind of models you're using, your storage requirements are going to differ vastly from project to project.
but it could be so sorry for interrupting you. It could be like a cache layer, right? Like there is several projects of how you can basically store some data in cache memory, so you can quickly access it through distributed workloads, right? So not like replacement of S3 or GCS, but just a quick access to artifacts, right? In your training or tuning or storage workloads, right?
It's possible we could bundle like a lightweight Minio or something in there just for storage or something if you wanted to. But yeah, that's something that the community will we're hoping come together and talk about.
Can we set up a meeting to review this doc, to walk through it, perhaps spend a little bit more time on it? 30 minutes or 45 minutes, would that be possible in the next 10 or 15 days?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do we want to do it a separate separate meeting, or is it in I feel that in this meeting we always have run out of time, so this may not be the right
we run out. I think it'll be hard to do it in this meeting, and I think that if we say you're supposed to come prepared, have read this document and have your comments ready, perhaps we could get through it. And then the only reason I say that is that, again, if I'm trying to think about when this working group potentially gets set up, probably does need to be voted on by the steering committee. We could do it on the interim steering committee, but considering we're in the throes of moving to the CNCF and we're having new steering committee meeting people coming in, and we should have them by mid-January, I just would like to have all our ducks in a row before we say yes. I'm pretty much a yes on keep moving this forward, right? I see no reason why we wouldn't. but I'd like for people, I'd like end users to show up and comment on this, right? That's what I would like to be able to do, is have a meeting that we could advertise and get some exposure on it and say, let's get some people in here and talk about whether they're actually going to use it, right? And how. So if we could set up some type of meeting, some type of Google Meet, a couple, 10 days from now, whatever, advertise it out to the community. Let's see who shows up. That'll tell us something, right?
Okay.
Does that sound fair? Is that unreasonable, or,
No, that sounds fair. I mean, let me send you, but you also have a deadline towards the community meeting, right? Community vote, the steering committee vote, I guess, on this.
Steering committee, your steering committee probably won't be in place until mid-January.
Oh, okay.
Could we make this happen before then? I don't know. If everything aligned and we had multiple companies involved, we have multiple users saying yes, we feel comfortable we can support and create the repo and support it. I think it's possible, but is it fair to, make this decision before, which is pretty major, before the new steering committee members are here? They're probably on this call, a lot of them anyway.
Right. All right. I mean, I'll start off with the, sharing the document and sending an email with the email to the community, at least encouraging them to read, and then we will follow up with another. I mean, I'll schedule some.
I'll help promote it, and I'll try to help get people there if you'll hold a meeting. That's what I'm saying. I will try to get people.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will be excited to do that. Yeah.
All right.
That's all
All right, I think that's enough for today.
Thank you so much.
Jeremy's not even laughing. He doesn't laugh at all.
Also, I mean, by the way, just regarding the Helm thing, I really, there's a few people that we might actually need to ban from the Kubeflow org because they're getting incredibly aggressive in those issues. Just like they are actually becoming a problem, a few of them. There's one in particular that we probably do need to remove, just because he is being pretty aggressive. But aside that, the Helm thing, like I would love there to be a Helm shop, but I really just don't think it's possible. Like that's just like what I'm trying to come back to. I wrote a bit of a note in the doc. Yeah.
Right. I get you. It just keeps coming up, and maybe we just need to tell that one user or potential user to be nice, right?
Yeah, I did draw their attention to the code of conduct, but just hopefully I'm just worried they're pretty. I think they're pretty likely to continue doing it, and I don't think it's a productive. That's all. Like, yeah.
We all have bad days. Let's see how it goes.
It's been over the course of about a year. This person has been a problem. So yeah.
All have bad years too. Right. Let's see if we can move to the happier side of life. That'll be one of our contributions. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else before we go? And look, if people would prefer this meeting to be run differently, let me know. And if it always seems like we're
overloading it, so we're part of the problem. We'll do better in the future and start breaking things out to the right meetings. Okay, thanks, folks.
Yeah, but it's just a high growth time, so I'm not upset about it. I'm concerned everybody's got time schedules, right? So, all right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Josh.
Okay.
Thank you, Josh, so much for your work. Really appreciate it.